Welcome. Today we're going to learn about trigonometric integrals and specifically powers of sine and cosine. So here we have an example in 1. We have the integral of cosine to the 5th power of x sine squared of x dx. And the key thing here is that we're integrating functions of cosine and sine to a power, and we specifically notice that the cosine is to an odd power. It's to the 5th power. It's odd and it's also positive. That allows us to use that information to make some adjustments to our integral so that we can integrate. Now, if it happened to have been sine to the 5th instead of cosine, we could still do the same process, but we would be using sine instead. So today we're using cosine, so let's proceed. So in item 2, what we're going to do is we're going to actually separate one of those cosines out. So now we drop down from cosine to the 5th power to cosine to the 4th power in item 4. And then if you look at 5, that's where that cosine is that we've just set aside. And if you combine cosine of x with dx, that will eventually be our du. And then we're going to wind up manipulating the other functions, trig functions, to look like some form of u, so that eventually we're going to wind up with an integral of some kind of u du combination so that we can use basic power rule to integrate. That's the goal here. Okay, so here we have item 1, and as you can see in item 2 we have our du that we've already established. In item 5, sine squared is going to wind up being u squared, and I'll show you how that all happens. Let's move to 3. You'll see our du, as I said, is our cosine of x dx. We already had established that. And if that's the case, since du is cosine, that means u has to be sine in item 4. And that we know that because the derivative of sine is cosine. So if du is cosine, that means u is sine. And that's how in item 5 we're able to substitute. If u is sine, then sine squared is u squared. So we can make that substitution. Now, the only thing left to replace is cosine to the 4th power, and we're going to do that next. So, item 1, we're in the process of changing our integral. We have u squared du in 2, no problem there. But in item 4, what do we do with the cosine to the 4th power? So, as a reminder, in item 3 we have u and du listed there. And in item 5, we're going to start replacing our cosine to the 4th power. So, first of all, it's going to be cosine of the 4th is cosine squared squared. So we can write that down. And then in item 6, we can replace cosine squared with 1 minus sine squared using a trig identity, which I've listed in 7. And once we've done that, we can also replace the sine squared again with u squared, because we already know u is sine. And in item 8, we have everything in terms of u. So in item 9, we have our integral again. We replace our cosine to the 4th power with 1 minus u squared squared. And now our entire integral is in terms of u's and du. Okay, at this point we actually do the integral. We're actually going to do some simplification, then we're going to do the integral. But what we've done is a lot of rearranging. We haven't really integrated at this point. So item 1 is our original integral. Item 2 is our integral in terms of u, which we showed in prior slides. Item 3 is just a simplification. We basically expand 1 minus u squared squared. In item 4, we distribute the u squared to each term. In item 5, we break up our integral into 3 separate integrals. In item 6, we actually do the integration, and we use power rule to do that. In item 7, we substitute back. In other words, every place u is now in terms of sine. And we have just completed our integral. And that's trigonometric integrals, powers of sine and cosine. Now go practice, and practice some more.